Hi everyone, welcome to my hummus making video. My name is Paige Wagner and I'm the registered dietitian for BGSU Dining by Chartwells. So today I wanted to show you how to make 4 basic types of hummus. So we're going to do a regular hummus, then we're going to move on to a little bit something crazy. We're going to do some beet hummus, then a roasted red pepper, which is a common one that you find in the store, and then we're going to end with a dessert hummus. So we have pumpkin pie hummus, and I promise you, you do not want to miss it. So the first thing that we're going to do is just take our food processor, make sure that it's cleaned out, make sure your blade is all the way to the bottom. The worst thing is when you put all of your stuff in and then you try to push the blade down, so always check that first. And then I'm going to go over a few basic ingredients. So with any hummus, your basic ingredients that you're always going to want to have are going to be your chickpeas, and always save the brine, don't rinse them. This is going to be really important because it will keep the hummus from getting too thick and pasty. And then we have olive oil, lemon juice, tahini paste, which is sesame seed paste, which kind of is what gives hummus its flavor, and then salt, pepper, and then some garlic. So instead of using fresh garlic today, I'm actually using some garlic salt. The fresh garlic that I had was just way too strong, but typically, and I'm someone who doesn't really like a whole lot of garlic, so it just depends on you. You can use fresh, you can use powdered, you can use garlic salt, whatever you want to do, make it your own. So those ingredients are going to be the staple in all 3 of these savory, typical hummus recipes, and then the ones for the pumpkin pie we'll do separate because they're a little different. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take 15 ounces, or it's a standard can, of garbanzo beans or chickpeas. You'll see them called both. And then we're going to take our tahini paste. So it's about 1.5 tablespoons. You don't want to go overboard on it because it can make it way too thick and it will taste like you're just eating sesame seeds, but not in a good way. I did that by mistake once and it was not very yummy. So we're going to want to do that. Then you're going to take half of a lemon, or if you just have regular bottled lemon juice, you can use that as well. The only difference that you're really going to see is that lemon juice from a bottle is very concentrated, so you're not going to want to use as much as if you just use half of a regular lemon. And if you love lemon juice, you can even do a whole lemon. It's completely up to you. Just be careful that you don't make it too lemony. Okay. We're gonna put that in there. We're gonna do a pinch of our salt. And then I used white ground pepper. The reason for this is when you put black pepper in a light food, it can kind of be a turnoff to people. It can almost look like little bugs or little black specks. And so sometimes people don't really find that appealing. As always, we always eat with our eyes first, so it's important to make sure that we kind of cater to that. So that's why I'm using the white pepper. But if you're just making this at home, feel free to just use your typical ground black pepper. So all we're going to do is add a little bit of garlic salt. And we don't want to do too much because we already added in the regular salt. And we're gonna stop it for just a second, and if you have a large food processor like we do, it's important to scrape down the sides because if you don't have it very full, it sometimes doesn't mix the best. So scrape it down. Give it a good stir, and now is the part that's gonna make it actually look like hummus. We're gonna put in our olive oil. So it's about a 1/4 cup of olive oil, but I always put extra with me. I bring it with me for this because a lot of times you may end up needing more, because if maybe you have just a little too much tahini paste or something else, you don't want to make it too thick. So it's looking pretty good. I'm thinking maybe just a little more of a drizzle. And then we're going to add just a little more garlic salt. I will suggest that for this size of recipe, I wouldn't do more than 2 cloves of garlic, maybe even 1 depending on how big it is, because it can be super overpowering, so just keep that in mind. All right, perfect. So we are going to move this one off to the side. I'm going to put it in a bowl, and because this is the same as the base for the next one, We aren't gonna worry about rinsing this out. We'll rinse it out before we move to the roasted red pepper. Okay. And again, the great thing about hummus, you can make it really however you want. So if you're someone who likes a really thick hummus, go ahead and do that. If you like it a little creamier, feel free. That's the beauty of cooking, is you can play with it and make it what you want. But in general, hummus is very good for you, and it's even better when you can make it on your own. Beans are always a great source of protein, a healthy starch, so it's something great to add into your diet. Okay, so there we have our bowl of our regular hummus. We're gonna go ahead and just put this back on. Push the blade all down to the bottom, and we're moving on to the beet. So for the beet hummus, you can do this a couple different ways. You can actually use raw beets. They tend to kind of chunk up in the food processor though, depends on how familiar you are with using beets. You can roast them ahead of time, or you can juice them and only use the juice. So for today, I actually had leftover beet juice, and so that's why I decided to use this. Instead of wasting more beets, I wanted to use what I already had. So you don't have to necessarily use all of it. Again, this is gonna thin it out more than using a regular beet would, so just keep that in mind. So we're gonna take our 15 ounces of garbanzo beans. Gonna juice our lemon. Put that in there. Get our tahini paste. Again, about 1.5 tablespoons, maybe a little less. Our salt. And for this, you may want to do a little more than what you did before. And that is simply because the beet will kind of overpower it. So sometimes it gets a little bland if you don't put enough salt in. Then we're going to use some pepper. Again, the white ground pepper. And we're going to mix this up before we add in the beet juice and the olive oil. Give it a good stir. Sometimes the skins of chickpeas, if you notice, it's almost like a little shell. Sometimes they can be a little difficult to blend in, and that's pretty normal. Nothing is probably ever going to be as smooth as the ones that you buy from the store, but you can get it pretty close. Okay, so we've got that blended well. We're going to go ahead and do our beet juice first because this is what the flavor is supposed to be. Okay, so I put about 1/4 cup in. We're gonna add just a little more. Just one more drizzle. So it's about 1/3 cup of beet juice. And then we're gonna add just a little olive oil. We got about a tablespoon and a half in there. And remember, if you get it a little too runny, you can always add more chickpeas, add more tahini paste, not too much though, because those are really overpowering in flavor. Or if you have it too thin, instead of using too much olive oil, you can actually use the juice that the chickpeas come in. And so that's actually called aquafaba, fun fact. So that's something that you can use instead too. That's not gonna change the flavor at all, but it's gonna help change the consistency of it. And sometimes once you make your homemade hummus, it will set up in the fridge, so it may thicken up just a little, so always keep that in mind too. And here we have this beautiful beet colored hummus. And I'm gonna go ahead and put this in a bowl, and we're gonna pause so I can clean up a little, and we'll do our roasted red pepper. All right, we are back. We have some clean equipment. We didn't stain too much with the beet juice. So we are going to move on to our roasted red pepper hummus, which is my personal favorite. I love roasted red peppers. I think they are the best thing ever. So this is probably the one that I would choose out of all three. So the first thing we're gonna do is take our 15 ounces or 1 3/4 cup of garbanzo beans, put it in our clean food processor. And then roasted red peppers, you can either roast on your own, but if you notice they're very soft, and then they kind of have like char lines on them, you can actually just buy them canned from the store, and I honestly think they taste absolutely amazing that way too. I'm just kind of breaking these up a little so that they go into the food processor easier. And save the juice from the can because we can use that to thin out the hummus and keep the flavor of it. So you're gonna wanna do about 3/4 to 1 cup of the hummus, or sorry, of the roasted red pepper into the hummus. We'll go ahead and just finish this out. Okay, we'll call it good there. And then I'm gonna change my gloves quick because that got a little more messy than I anticipated. Okay, so got our peppers in, we got our chickpeas in. Now we're going to juice half of a lemon. Okay, put that in there. And then we are going to add our salt, our white pepper, and then some garlic salt, our tahini paste. So let me grab my spatula. So again, about 1 1/2 tablespoons of tahini paste. And then this one has a little more seasoning to it, so we have some dark chili powder. So I'm gonna add about 1/2 teaspoon to this, about 1/2 teaspoon of cumin, and then we have cayenne. So cayenne is however much you want. A little goes a long way, so you don't have to add very much for it to get a kick. And always go little, and then if it's not spicy enough, go ahead and add a little bit more. So we're gonna go ahead and blend this. Scrape down the sides. Okay, and this one isn't gonna need too much liquid, and I prefer to use the liquid from the roasted red peppers, again, for the flavor. So we're just gonna drizzle some in there. Perfect. We're gonna go ahead and put this into our bowl. And this one is typically a little thinner than the other ones just because of the pepper being canned. If you use just your own pepper, then it might not be quite as thin. Okay, so there we have it. There's our 3 savory hummuses. We're gonna take one last quick break, make our pumpkin hummus, and then we will put everything together. All right, we are on to our last hummus. I think this might be the most favorite one for everyone. So it is the pumpkin hummus. So we have our chickpeas, and the ingredients are a little different. So in substitute of tahini, we're gonna use about 1/4 cup of almond butter. In substitution for the olive oil, we have maple syrup. And then the recipe actually does not call for pumpkin. And believe me, it actually does taste just like pumpkin pie without the pumpkin, but I like to add some in just because it is really good for you, and it's really high in vitamin C, which is great for your immune system, but I also just love pumpkin. Then for our seasonings, we have just a little bit of salt. We have cinnamon pumpkin pie spice, which typically has cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and then we have some vanilla. So we're gonna go ahead and mix this up here. So do our chickpeas. Some almond butter, which you could use peanut butter, but I will say that almond butter and cashew butter are gonna be your best bet. They aren't quite as powerful as peanut butter. If you use peanut butter, it's definitely gonna take over the flavor and not be as pumpkin-y. And then I use about 1/4 cup to 1/3 cup of pumpkin. About 2 teaspoons of vanilla. About 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and you don't want to go overboard on the cinnamon because there is cinnamon in the pumpkin pie spice already. And then just a pinch of salt. Blend it up. And we're going to drizzle in our maple syrup. Scrape the sides quick. And it smells absolutely amazing. I'm gonna let it run just a little bit longer. I'm gonna give just a little drizzle, maple syrup. I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of the way. Perfect. All right. Put this in our last bowl. And this is a great addition. You can bring it to Thanksgiving, kind of as a healthy dip. You can bring it to football games. You know, just keep it in the house this time of year. I think it's absolutely delicious. It's healthy for you too. There is some sugar from the maple syrup, but you could always substitute honey or something else. Depends on how health conscious you are being. We're gonna move this food processor. Okay, so now we have our 4 types of hummus. Beautiful. So then we have these. So now what I'm going to show you how to do is kind of a couple different things. So with the pumpkin hummus, you can actually use apples, ginger snaps, cinnamon graham crackers, pretzels, whatever you're thinking to dip in it. I'm a huge fan of pretzels, so that's what I'm going to use. And I actually got some dark chocolate chips as well. And I am going to sprinkle those on top. So if you really want to make it more dessert-like, that's something you can do. Sprinkle it with some cinnamon, add some cinnamon sticks, whatever sounds good. And then we're just going to pair that with some pretzels here. And there is an easy dessert hummus that you can take with you. Wherever you go, I guarantee you that it's going to be the hit of the party. So then on to the savory hummus. So one of my favorite things is hummus toast. So I actually have Ezekiel bread here. Not everyone is super familiar with it. So it actually stems from biblical times, and there's a Bible verse that it is named after, which if you look it up, that's kind of the nature behind Ezekiel bread. And it is not made of actual flour. It's made of all of the grains that kind of go into breads. So you'll notice that it's definitely not as soft as regular bread. And it actually isn't toasted yet, and it already is pretty firm. So I have a flax version and a sesame version here to try. Again, it's kind of an acquired taste. Some people love it, some people don't really care for it, but I always say it's worth trying. So what we're gonna do is kind of make some fun versions of toast. Here we have our regular hummus, a little garlicky. So we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna put that on there. Ooh. Next, we're going to use our beet hummus, and I'm going to kind of stripe mine. And then our roasted red pepper hummus. And then for this one, I am actually just going to sprinkle some everything bagel seasoning on it, which if you are someone who's had this, it is absolutely delicious, and a little goes a long way. So you really don't have to like pack it on there to get the flavor. So I'd say that's good. And then we're gonna do a little drizzle of balsamic glaze across the top. And then this one of my favorite things to do is kind of blend the beet and the roasted red pepper. So I put this down as the base, the beet is the base. And then we are going to take our roasted red pepper and kind of blend it, if that makes sense. I think it makes a really pretty color when you swirl it all together. Yum. And then arugula goes great with hummus toast. It is kind of has like a mustard green flavor. It's supposed to taste pretty mustardy. So we're gonna put that there on top and add some balsamic. But really, you can put whatever you want on hummus toast. You could do roasted vegetables. You could do an avocado on top. I mean, the world is your oyster. You can literally do whatever you want. That's the beauty of hummus toast. You could use whatever kind of bread you want. Again, be as creative as you want. I just wanted to show you some simple ideas. And the great thing about hummus is that it will last for a little while in the fridge. So if you're the only one eating it, you can always cut the recipe in half and it will last you for a while that way too. So I hope you enjoyed how to learn how to make all of these. And if you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out, and I hope you stay tuned for more videos. Thanks.